Keep your eyes open and listen closely. The anomaly we will explore today deals with the concepts of meta-narratives and pataphysics, the science of imaginary solutions. Are we part of a convoluted narrative, or just viewers of the unstoppable flow of reality? Item number SCP-2747. Object Class Keter. Threat Level Black. Special Containment Procedures. Foundation watchdog algorithms are to monitor online and print media for mention of SCP-2747 positive key phrases. All matches are to be tagged and forwarded to the Department of Analytics, which will provide further confirmation of SCP-2747 manifestation. In case of positive identification, all defected media are to be sustainably corrected via standard Foundation media alteration protocols. 912A Twilight Zone. 943A Poison Well. Observational Procedure Lucid Chalice. The results of Lucid Chalice will be documented within the current documentation as Appendix B. Description: SCP-2747 is a phenomenon appearing in print and online media, whereby platforms dedicated to the discussion of works of fiction begin to mention a non-existent instance of fictional media. Despite said non-existence, articles, posts, comments, and other related meta-content created with regard to non-existent works of fiction will be found treating it as real. The non-existent work of fiction can be mentioned by various individuals in varying capacities, ranging from brief mentions in forum posts to being the subject of entire academic essays. Descriptions, screenshots, photographs of physical copies, and brief segments of text from said work of fiction can often be discovered in SCP-2747 affected media. Descriptions of it are entirely consistent with each other, and it has proven possible to reconstruct whole segments of fiction media via descriptions of it taken from SCP-2747 generated meta-content. A list of fictitious media generated by SCP-2747 has been appended below. See Appendix A. Where possible, the affected material can be traced to existing individuals. However, when questioned under duress, said individuals invariably deny having written the affected material, and deny all existence of the fictitious media mentioned within. SCP-2747 has never been documented in real time. All observed instances thus far have been recorded post hoc. No instances have been documented prior to January 2008. The reason for this is unknown. Conforms to pataphysical observations documented in full in Appendix B. It is the current hypothesis of the Department of Analytics that SCP-2747 represents evidence of a naturally occurring Anafabula, or anti-narrative, a cluster of interdependent signs, iconography, and narrative memes that, when included to a sufficient extent within a fictional construct, leads to mutual annihilation. A narrative meme is defined as a base unit of a narrative, much in the same way that a myth meme denotes a base unit of a myth, or a meme denotes a base unit of culture. First-hand reconstruction of the Anafabula's properties is impossible given its anomalous nature, but second-hand and third-hand descriptions have been generated from observational procedure Lucid Chalice and appended below. See Appendix B. It can be affected through layers of metafictional narrative, i.e., a meta-narrative containing the Anafabula will cease to exist within the narrative, followed by the narrative itself disappearing from our reality. This interpretation of pataphysical reality, layers of metafictional narrative, has yet to be verified by Foundation observations at large, but appear concurrent with observations obtained from transfictional anomalies such as SCP-1304, SCP-2614, and 01. The key identifier of the Anafabula is that it invariably represents as an in-universe antagonist or anathema in all manifestations of SCP-2747, likely due to inherent narrative meme components indicating its alien yet centralizing nature. Update: the above-mentioned hypothesis has been confirmed as a working model of SCP-2747. Please refer to Appendix B. Update: The following procedures are to be enacted following the successful conclusion of observation procedure Lucid Chalice. See Appendix B. At no time are the properties of the Anafabula, as outlined in Appendix B, to arise in real life, whether as a result of deliberate or natural action. Any object, person, or event bearing more than significance level alpha to the semblance threshold is to be altered via whatever means possible. Access to information regarding SCP-2747, especially the information contained within Appendix B, is to be strictly limited to clearance level 4-2747 and 3 analytics. Due to the pataphysical implications and inherent uncontainability of SCP-2747, as detailed in Appendix B, it is to be classified as Keter, with immediate effect. Appendix A. Partial list of manifestations of SCP-2747. Non-existent work referenced. Punta de la Espira. Medium. Short story. Extent of manifestation. 17 articles created and edited on Wikipedia. Summary of work. Punta de la Espira. English. Tip of the Spire, Spiral, is apparently a 1951 short story by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. It describes an unnamed protagonist as he sails down a river towards a desolate, black, horned mountain in order to deliver a gift to an unspecified recipient. The journey is rough and treacherous, and he dies of exhaustion at the end of the story, appearing to be no closer to his goal than when he first began. The mountain is described in detail through the story, with recurring metaphors alternatingly alluding to it as either an abode of the gods or a demonic presence. Taitoru, Japanese. The film's title describes itself. It is the Japanese phonetic pronunciation for the English word title. Animated film. One article created on TV Tropes, with 55 edits made to various trope pages ranging from Despair Event Horizon to Foreshadowing and What do you mean it wasn't made on drugs? Taitoru appears to be an animated film directed by Satoshi Kon, shortly before his death. It is described as a psychological thriller chronicling a struggling manga artist as she attempts to complete and publish her first work under a tight deadline. Stray's takes its toll and boundaries blur. She begins to hallucinate, and the movie ends ambiguously as to whether she achieved her goal or succumbed to her weakness. Typical of Kon's style, the animation is described as meticulous, kaleidoscopic, and occasionally deeply disturbing. One scene features the protagonist physically grappling with the shadows of her apartment, described in the trope entry for Your Mind Makes It Real, as the manifestation of her creative block, which eventually engulf and consume her. No Sister of Mine. Video game. 77 threads on forumsomethingawful.com, each carrying between 3 to 103 comments. Most users were established members of the Something Awful community. No Sister of Mine is supposedly a turn-based role-playing video game of the fantasy horror genre published by Boakahan for the Nintendo GameCube in 2005. While Boakahan existed as a major game development studio operating out of Seoul between 2002 and 2005, no record of No Sister of Mine has ever been found. According to reviewers, the player controls a party of 6 unnamed characters as they explore a ruined kingdom with the intention to find a lost companion referred to as Sister. It was widely panned by the reviews, with much criticism being leveled at the glitchy field battle system, incoherent dialogue, seemingly incomplete graphics, repetitive soundtrack described as nauseating and headache-inducing, as well as being impossible to complete. The game's non-playable characters continuously mention a cold black, stern-bound tome that, when read from, would enable one to either obtain great power or unleash a dreadful curse. What most reviewers assume to be the final questline required the player to backtrack through the game's previous areas and recover fragments of the tome using their newfound abilities. However, The reviewers unanimously claim that no fragments can be found. One reviewer goes as far as to claim that the items themselves were never found inside the game's coding in the first place. The Scolipendra Wiki. Collaborative fiction. 49 different pieces of fan fiction ranging from 343 to 2,401 words in English. Posted on fanfiction.net, each varying between 1 and 6 comments. The Scolipendra Wiki is deduced to be an online collaborative fictional universe belonging to the horror, speculative fiction, and weird fiction genres. It appears to have been hosted on some form of wiki site, though the address itself is never mentioned. The exact nature of Scolipendra's plot is hard to discern, as the various pieces of fanfiction sport vastly different storylines and a range of character interpretations, further complicated by the involvement of other fictional universes and settings. What is known is that it involves a cast of 7 characters, wandering between a series of realms, amassing and collecting items possessing supernatural or abnormal properties. One item features heavily throughout the compiled works, a 7-sided obsidian emblem, said to possess the power to destroy any object, person, or abstract concept with a single touch. It appears to be of great interest to the protagonists, who repeatedly make attempts to acquire it. However, it also appears to be currently in the possession of a sinister, unnamed antagonist, who is alluded to repeatedly in several works, yet is never seen. I/O. Musical album. Review columns in a total of 14 reputable publications, including the New Bombay Times, Pitchfork, and LA Flipside. I/O is described as the 9th studio album by the now defunct English rock band Radiohead. It contains 6 tracks, measuring a total of 34 minutes and 18 seconds. The majority of tracks appear to consist mostly of digitally manipulated samples from Radiohead's previous albums, layered over with sparse acoustic instrumentation and vocals. Reception of the album appears to be highly positive, with the exception of Pitchfork's Jessica Green, who gave an average review of 7.0. In particular, Green felt that the album suffered from hasty and uncoordinated post-production, likely not undertaken by Radiohead themselves. Audio cuts between the 5th and 6th track were described to be unnecessarily jarring, given the seamless flow between every other track in the album. It is mentioned that the album uses a characteristic rating by natural reverb layered over lead singer Tom York's solo vocal track as a musical motive, embodying what the New Bombay Times, Gulshan Anidu, believes to be its central themes of spirals of isolation and inspiration, or feedback loops that resonate into the level of the deeply personal, the trembling core of creative psyche. Anirudh also mentions lyrics referencing suicide and self-harm, though present through a series of oblique metaphors. I/O never fears to toy with the idea of self-hatred and self-desecration. Yet, the album as a whole seems to fall short of its mark, always orbiting, yet never quite touching upon the dreadful center. Mavigny, or a treatise on the metaphysics of inner space travel and the kingdom of Verikar, whose name is darkness made light, and further theological expositions thereof. Novel. 7 articles, published in a single week in various academic journals of literary criticism, each by reputable scholars. Mavigny is described as the contents of a manuscript and accompanying charcoal illustrations found in the house of Arrithabile Abrahams in 2014. Abrahams appears to have been a reclusive writer and artist, working as a maintenance technician in Bloemfontein, South Africa, and clinically diagnosed with schizophrenia. Mavigny is a nest-frame narrative written in Afrikaans, purporting to be a novel by a 17th century Dutch mystic. A number of individuals partially match this description, though no work similar to Mavigny exists. It describes the journey of the mystic, whose name is only given as Mas, learning of the structure of Earth's interior as revealed to him in the vision. At the beginning of the novel, Mas dreams of a supernatural being that is aware of its nature as a dream entity and is highly indebted to Mas for bringing it into existence. In exchange, it promises to divulge to Mas the secrets of the earth. Mas, being corporeal, is unable to pass through the ground, and so the being decides to simply narrate the journey. It speaks of 6 realms, demarcated by thresholds, ranging from the realm of treasure and minerals to an intangible plane of light and sound. Beyond these 6 realms lies another threshold, this time one of cold and silence, which is described to be the Earth's core. Before it can be elaborated upon, Mas wakes and the dream ends. X-Logs. Interactive novel. In-depth post on 7 different fiction review blogs, along with a mention in a Time magazine article on experimental narrative forms. The End. Ciao Ingrid. Time. Issue 35, 2008. The title is also mentioned in 175 Twitter posts, largely in the context of recommending it as an interesting, if underrated, piece of interactive fiction. X-Lux appears to be a work of interactive fiction of the mystery genre, written in a mixture of English, Catalan, and Spanish. It is presented as a set of epistolary narratives from the point of view of 6 characters, and a stream of consciousness narration of ambiguous provenance. Readers navigate between the 7 story threads, discovering hints of a murder, or several murders. Eventually, the narratives converge at a roadside dinner during a thunderstorm, and the characters exchange their stories. From here, the restaurant narrative structure cannot adequately be described as simple framing devices or stories within stories, as the inner tales eventually begin to intertwine, such that later tales shed new light on ones recounted earlier, or themselves link to segments of text earlier on in the narrative after lengthy detours. At several points, characters attempt to consult the testimony of an absent individual, referred to as the stranger. The identity of the murderer or victim is never known, nor does the story have a conventional ending. Appendix B. Observations and conclusions from Lucid Chalice. Data lost. End log. According to Agent Tafeta from the SCP Foundation, the first thing its members learn is that the Foundation itself isn't real. It's just 2747 at work once again. If the so frequently mentioned Appendix B was the narrative that got erased, what would be erased next, if not this SCP file? If that is so, what will happen to the narrative within itself, the SCP universe, our own universe? This entry was suggested by one of our viewers, Observador Andino. Your suggestions for future entries are more than welcome in the chat box below. I am Virus Anonymous. We are the GOC, and you have been informed.